Congratulations! You have completed the first stage of breakthrough, and this Moon in Leo transit brings with it the rewards that come with such character-defining action. Welcome to your Magic Moon message. This is the Peace Dealer, and we will be breaking down this Moon in Leo, Sun in Libra transit for the year of 2025. May I remind you, 2025, in my interpretation, is a bridge year that is bringing us out of 30, 248, and 185 year cycles with Saturn, Pluto, and Neptune respectively. 2022 to 2024 featuring Saturn leaving Aquarius and going into Pisces synthesized at a collective universal level all the world's beliefs as we get ready to apply them over the next 30-year cycle, starting with Saturn in Aries coming into March of 2026. So in understanding that 2025 is really 2024 part 2 and 2026 is going to begin a brand new trilogy, it gives you an idea that this year is closing out old themes as we're bridging in new themes that will become more increasingly relevant starting next year. For reference, the last time Pluto was in Aquarius, you had monarchs getting overthrown because they were taking advantage of poor people. Now that Pluto is back in Aquarius, you have the government getting overthrown because they're taking advantage of poor people. Now, Paris and France is not new to protests and any type of demonstrations, but it's something to be said that history does seem to be repeating itself. And that's why it's very significant off the heels of a Pluto Sagittarius generation in Nepal that through the wildfires of revolution have elected their new leader via Discord. This is the sneak peek of what we are going to set as precedents coming into next year. And when you look at Libra themed issues, Libra in its representation of courtroom drama and decisions and agreements between relationships, it's not at all coincidence that the judge dismissed Drake's trial the same week Israel and Gaza came into a ceasefire. And just like people may not be sure if the ceasefire is legit, people aren't necessarily sure if Drake is going to appeal or not. Giving you an idea that there's more to come. Not that any of this has to be bad, and we might even see very amazing things from this, but it's important to see how as we concluded this Libra season, we are seemingly concluding conflicts that started way before 6 months ago. And that's just to establish the nature of breakthrough as evidenced in this fall season in the Northern Hemisphere. I had wanted to make a quick 3-minute version for Instagram, and considering we're already at the 2-minute 50-second mark-ish, it's just not going to work. IG, you're going to have to get the full clip. So understand, as we close out Libra season through this closing sequence and we enter Scorpio season, things are going to get spookier than you could ever imagine. Albeit while that might be hyperbole, I am referencing Saturn and a Neptune that will be retrograde in Pisces for the last time. Yes, it's a big deal. Given everything that's up in the air over the next 3 months, this is going to finalize the changing of everything we collectively have ever believed, which to me, considering the season finale we had with this turning point of an eclipse, is definitely going to feature things we probably never thought we'd be talking about or have ever seen before. For now, thankfully, that could be speculation, but considering the fact that many people are speculating there is some kind of spaceship device floating towards our planet or an asteroid, should be fun. As far as how you are going to push this forward, you want to take into account the character development you have put in since March and April, and how with the Moon in Leo creating this Aquarius signature of community and belonging, the actions you have been demonstrating and this development of character, who does that attract in your corner? Who do you understand, given Leo's penchant for passion, celebrates when you win and understands the value that you bring, especially socially, to situations? Even though it's not a weekend, this actually would favor any amount of social activity and is a very great period, whether through testing or by, desire, to go out wherever you want and see what kind of friends you make. This also allows you to examine current friendships and current relationships and what kind of rewards the actions you've taken over the past month come with such commitment and determination. In other words, this is the reward portion. So we finished the moon in Cancer. We're coming out of the accomplishments. Once the moon comes a little bit over halfway through Leo, boom, we're activating the Aquarius signature, and we're going to feel these rewards in the form of more boldness in understanding what courage we will bring to the table for leverage. And this is going to set up the moon in Virgo balsamic phase, whereas we will understand the real practical understanding of what these rewards are through the balsamic and the rest of this Aquarius signature. We are going to experience this final real change. The understanding of facts that synthesize or prepare to synthesize through the moon in Sagittarius how and what really has happened. Kind of in a sense where, given the events over the past 2 weeks, we've just experienced it, we're going to have more understanding of how to analyze it. But before that, we're going to get through this moon in Leo transit. We want to also take into account the opposition the moon in Leo makes to Pluto and Aquarius, the sextile it makes to that 0 degree Uranus in Gemini, and the trine it makes to Neptune in Aries, which is important because this is one of the last times we will have this here before Uranus goes back to Taurus and Neptune goes back to Pisces. But these angles now hyper accelerate, and if anything, add an exponential quality and factor to the cumulative effect of what we are breaking through. Meaning you're going to feel an exaggerated nature of work you have put in, almost avalanching to quite literally reap what you've sowed. And that's where, I mean, if you've sowed bad habits, if you've sowed bad decisions, if you're treating people the way you don't want to be treated, you're going to see that reflected very extremely through your collective unconscious. If you're actually drawing proper boundaries and you are doing due diligence, you're going to be seeing these actions pay back very respectively, very handsomely. And that's mainly, once again, not really because of any planetary effects, but just the consequence of actions you've taken. So we're going to use the planets as a backdrop to let you know what's happening and when, and how you can use that, of course, to do what you're meant to do. Virgo represented mastering riding an electric motor scooter and having to really now change the feeling of maybe a manual bike with something that's a lot quicker and requires more skill. Libra season represents taking that electric motorbike and now driving it through a car show where you are performing its abilities and also demonstrating your talents. When I'm practicing, I'm going to master the skill, but when I'm actually playing in the playoffs, I'm demonstrating my skill. And now, while we're in Libra demonstrating what we mastered through Virgo, Venus in Virgo, through this demonstration, is polishing the mastery of these habits and skills. So if I'm playing an actual game, I'm applying all the practice I did in the gym, but while I'm playing that game, certain techniques I've mastered, I am polishing mid-game. I am actually finessing it as I'm playing. And now that Venus is in Libra, we're applying this polishing of our habits towards now polishing our demonstration. This is going to add a lot more beauty and grace to the way we're demonstrating our talents, namely the way you're playing this playoff game. Given that Venus is transiting behind the sun, which could denote unconscious of such a process, you'll be delighted to see this effect play out and the application of this effect through how what you have already done over the past 20 days, you're bringing more beauty towards, you're balancing more, and you're able to actually affect more smoothness in what you're communicating, which would be really good if you had to deal with prior miscommunication or misunderstanding. Mercury and Mars in Scorpio further deepen the psychoanalytical exploration of the nuances that enable you deeper intimacy with this established connection you are currently completing. One, with other people, and two, relative to your character and social awareness, aka your superpower. So before the sun goes into Scorpio, and now we're going to be aware of what you have been processing and how you are taking action ahead of time. As of now, as we're closing this Libra cycle out, the Scorpio transit, now with this conjunction, links your brain with your actions to guide you deeper and probe deeper beneath the surface on how you can draw appropriate boundaries and sort out trust, which will bring up trust issues. Especially the closer Mars and Mercury will get to opposing Uranus and Gemini. It's getting ready to go back in Taurus, which means now coming into the rest of the week, very unexpected developments, for better or for worse, are going to begin to break through. Once again, I'm referencing Mercury and Mars that are getting ready to 180-degree Uranus. For any of you watching this, ask your friends who read astrology what they think that's going to do and watch their face, because I'm pretty sure they have an idea of what that can look like. For the purposes of being vague, that doesn't have to be anything specific. We just know that Mars is the god of war and Uranus is unpredictable as all heck. And Mercury, of course, will instigate with propaganda or information. So I don't want to necessarily flame this as good or bad. I think we'll see a range of anything good and bad that can happen with this. But I can say with full certainty, I do believe that's going to trigger a lot, as then these will cross into Sagittarius and show us a bigger picture of how what these social issues bridge universally, globally, and collectively with everybody. In other words, I'm saying that we're getting ready to shift sequences and step into the next season of this show, which we appropriately did with this Libra season, but we will more than intensify through Scorpio. Finally, we will have the moon in Leo squaring Mars and Mercury, and that's going to challenge this feeling of boldness and the rewards that come with our actions, and how that consolidates immediately into this perceived and actual value. How do we bridge this extra support into more leverage and into deepening intimacy or drawing more important boundaries with who we are getting ready to deeper connect with? As such, this really sets up the upcoming moon in Virgo, where we know this change of behavior and perception is in a short 2 days going to really conclude and shape narrative, but with understanding what's factual about everything, especially since the past 3 weeks with which we initially began this cycle. So in conclusion, expect accelerated, exponential breakthrough that you will be aware in how much further you come into success with who you're dealing with, what the frame of these relationships are, existing relationships, how you could take them further, and new relationships that may bud through these actions that may indirectly open up new paths for you, with which when we have that new moon in Libra, you'll be aware of what direction to take. As the moon raises in degree in Leo, the potency and strength of this will increase, and it's going to require courage to not necessarily back down in the face of opposition, but also the integrity to own up to where you may need to adjust, with which the moon in Virgo will give you that reality check, or affirm what facts you're operating on that are real so that you can maintain them. That being said, I hope you enjoy this Magic Moon message and you could look forward to amazing news, especially if you have sowed those good seeds. I think you're going to enjoy what you will be reaping. Peace.